Hey, business building warrior, welcome to Silent Sales Machine Radio, the podcast for e-commerce warriors like you. If you're trying to use the internet to grow multiple income streams of businesses you can be proud of, or maybe you've never made any money online before, you're just trying to find something that really works, well, this is the podcast for you. We've interviewed hundreds of successful e-commerce warriors, and something they have in common, among other things, is they are all students of the proven Amazon course training that we offer here. It's the most established and trusted Amazon seller training at a ridiculously low price, and we'd love to welcome you in as our next student. If you're interested, go to provenamazoncourse.com, and we'd love to help you start your journey towards being one of the incredible success stories that you can hear so many of on this show. That's the main thing we do on this show, but today's a different episode. Today we have a recent webinar that was recorded with Yoda Yee. He is a really cool guy. He's the CEO of ThreeColts, which happens to have, to my knowledge, the largest user base of software users in the Amazon reselling arena. So there's more resellers using their software than any other software tool out there. And that puts him, along with the fact that he used to work at Amazon, it puts Yoda in a position where he's still got a lot of really good connections inside the Amazon corporate organization where he can become an advocate for resellers. And he does just that. So between his audience and our audience, there's a lot of potential for us to get attention at Amazon corporate. And that's exactly what we do on the behalf of resellers who use Amazon as a significant part of their income. So we're advocating for you and we're making progress. He's got some great news. He's been in some high-level meetings recently. There's a lot of things he's not at liberty to share with us, but there is a lot of things he can share. And I think it's going to be really good news. So let me just hit some highlights, then we'll get into the conversation with Yoda. The big picture overview. There's a very bright future for reselling, and Amazon is paying a lot of positive attention towards the reselling opportunity. Yoda and I both agree on that point. There's a lot of increased attention at Amazon to some of those common issues that we seem to all raise frequently as resellers that just don't make sense. And I'll go into what some of those are, where fixing the problem would make Amazon's life easier. It would make the shopper's life easier, which is who will always be most important to Amazon, the shoppers. But it would also make the seller's life, that's us, it would make our life easier, where we could make more money, have a more predictable, stable business, right? So there's some issues there that we address that Amazon is starting to pay some attention to. So great news there. And then some of the changes that are coming. Yoda and I spent some time talking about that, some of the things that Amazon has given him the liberty to share with us and the reselling community at large. So bottom line, the opportunity is getting bigger. The speed of which it's growing is increasing. In other words, the blue ocean is getting bigger and deeper. The opportunity is expanding, and Amazon is fixing some of those common issues. And they already have fixed several, and we spend some time on that. So now is a great time to get in on Amazon reselling. Let me just drop a couple of facts and data points on you, just to help shore up your confidence in that arena. And then I'll talk about some of the specific items that Yoda and I dove into, and then we'll get into the episode. Okay. So if you weren't aware, e-commerce is still in its infancy. It may seem like Amazon has taken over the world and e-commerce is dominating, but that's just not the case. You can ask any AI engine, you can search Google, and you'll go find these exact results that I'm about to share with you. Far less than 20% of all retail spending in the United States is online. 80% plus of all retail spending by shoppers in the United States is traditional, not online, but brick and mortar, get in the car, go to the store, that sort of thing. That's where 80% of spending is. Now, that trend is slowly tipping in the favor of e-commerce, obviously. We were at 5% of retail just a few short years ago. Then we jumped to 10 and 15 during COVID. We took a 5-point leap into the future very rapidly, but we're still far less than 20% of all spending is online. The future is 30, 40, maybe even 50% online. What's that mean? Well, that means the blue ocean is getting deeper and bigger, the blue ocean of opportunity in e-commerce. What's the biggest player in that space? Well, of course, you guessed Amazon, which is why we're so excited about that space. It's exploding rapidly. On Amazon right now, there's 1.3 billion different products, different ASINs, and that catalog is growing rapidly. 40% of that catalog is fulfilled by small resellers. That's right. You have the opportunity to fill Amazon's hundreds of warehouses scattered around the United States with the products that people are demanding. And at any given time, there's millions of products that are completely unstocked or ridiculously understocked in that massive warehouse network. That's the introductory opportunity of reselling. That leads to so many other great opportunities. So thanks for bearing with me if you knew all that already. But I just wanted to paint a little picture of the scope and scale of the opportunity as we see it, as those of us who are leading organizations that serve resellers. The facts, the data, the evidence that's in front of us looks very promising for the future of this business model. And now I want to dive into some of the topics that Yoda and I hit. Just a quick list of what you can expect. We talked about more than what I'm about to give you, but here's a quick overall peek into this episode so you know you're spending your time well. Again, what are the biggest challenges Amazon and sellers are facing right now, and what's Amazon corporate doing about it? The gating and ungating issues and some of those frustrations. We spend time on that. Maximum pricing alerts. Amazon saying, hey, you can't sell this item for more than $20. Well, I didn't know that before I invested in it. What's Amazon doing about some of those issues? Counterfeit without a test buy. Oh, no one likes that. No one likes that. What's Amazon doing about it? Gray market versus counterfeit. We talk about used books and a whole lot more. So enjoy this episode. It's a great conversation with a great leader who has a ton of integrity and influence in the Amazon reselling arena. It was a pleasure to spend some time with Yoda. Let's get him on the line now. Enjoy our conversation. I always say you're one of the coolest guys in the industry with absolutely the coolest name. That's what I always say about you, Yoda.
I'll have to thank my parents for that. They were big Star Wars fans, so.
Oh, seriously, I've always been kind of slow to ask, but there's not many Yodas
Yeah.
out there. That's so great.
No, yeah, it's some people think it's a cultural name, but unfortunately, it's not Japanese or Chinese name. It's absolutely
It's a Star
a
Wars
Star
thing.
Wars name.
Oh, that's great. How's your Yoda impression?
Not very good. It should be a lot better by the time I make it to my age, but unfortunately,
That's
I haven't
awesome.
been practicing.
That's awesome. I'm so glad you brought that up. I've always been a little like, is that okay to ask? I don't know, man. But cool.
You
Let's
know
get into
what's
some good
funny is when
content, man. We got some good people here. I'm recognizing some of these names. Hey, Daniel said, use the force. Absolutely. We're going to use the
yes,
force today, man. We're going to bring it. Yoda always brings it, man.
I'm super excited for it. I remember when I first started at Amazon. This was when Star Wars 7 was coming out, so I couldn't run away from any of the Yoda jokes at any of the trade shows. Everyone had Star Wars licensing that year, so.
Yes, someone said, is your birthday May the 4th? Actually, my dad, who passed in 2020, but he had a Star Wars birthday, right? May the 4th. Yeah.
May the 4th. Wow. No, my birthday is not on May the 4th, but that
Not
would
that
be
perfect.
even more hysterical.
Thanks to everyone who gathered here today, man. A good group of people. Maybe you're watching the recording later. This is for you as well. But for those of you who are joining us live, it's awesome. I always love doing these things, and we've done some preparation in advance. But you're going to bring some stuff that I'm even excited to get into because you've had some great conversations recently that you haven't updated me yet. So let's dive in if you guys are ready. I'm raring.
Yeah, yeah, let's do this.
100%.
Yeah, quick introduction. I'm the moderator. Don't worry, I'll be in the behind the scenes. I'm a seven-figure seller and I'm a content creator at ThreeColts. So I'm super excited to introduce everyone in today's webinar. I'll be helping out with the moderation and getting all your questions answered towards the end. So please, throughout the call, put all your questions in the chat and we'll make sure to go through every single one of them. So in today's webinar, we're going to be talking about seller advocacy and the efforts that ThreeColts have pushed on behalf of Amazon sellers, where things stand, exciting developments, and where things are going. Okay, this will be a recorded webinar. In fact, we are recording right now, right? So everyone prepare for that. Let me introduce you to our first speaker, which is going to be Yoda Yee. He is the CEO at ThreeColts, and he will be leading the presentation. We're also joined by our co-host, Jim Cockrum, who is the founder of the Proven Amazon course. So I'm going to pass it on to them and I'll be in the background. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Steven. Good work, buddy.
Thank you, Steven. Do you want to kick us off with a quick introduction on yourself, and then I'll take it over?
Sure. To keep it short, I want maximum value delivered to those who are with us today and to those who are going to listen to this recording later. And my name is Jim. You can find me at silentjimdotcom, like it says on this cool little placard my mom got me. Amazon training. We've got arguably one of the largest, if not the largest, communities of successful Amazon sellers and those trying to build a business on Amazon in the world. So we're kind of the education side. And I think of ThreeColts, and that's you, Yoda, as the kind of the leading force, there's the word again, in software with ThreeColts and everything you've done there. So between the two of us, we've got a pretty robust audience that we can reach of Amazon sellers, specifically resellers, which I appreciate this about you, Yoda, is you have a very bright forecast for the future of Amazon reselling, as do I, based on all the facts, data, and evidence and everything laid before us. I argue now is a better time than ever to get into the game from what I'm seeing. And I love that you echo a lot of those sentiments as well. So that's enough about me. I want to get into the content and hear what you've been hearing lately.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for that, Jim. And for everyone else, I'm also a very big believer in the reseller industry. If we go down this path, we'll end up talking a full hour about that alone. And so I'll try and avoid diving too deep into that and showcasing a little bit of the presentation that I prepared today. So let me pull that up really quickly. Do you guys see my screen?
Looks great to me.
Fantastic. Before I jump in, I guess, Jim, obviously there's a lot of challenges when it comes to selling on Amazon, selling online. What are you hearing as being like the biggest opportunities that they feel like Amazon could do to make the seller life a little bit easier?
Yeah, I'm not one of those guys that complains about, some people you can say, start your complaint list and they'll have 50 things and they'll rattle them off. A lot of that's just stuff that comes with running a business. A lot of the frustrations of any business, it's inherent. But there are a handful of things where I have a special set of challenges that I set to the side where I think Amazon would make more money, shoppers would be happier, and us as sellers would have a better, easier life if some things were fixed. To give you a couple of examples, ungating. Let's get that clarified, right? Let's make that straightforward. Am I gated or not? Don't tell me I'm ungated and then pull the rug on me after I buy a few units. That kind of stuff. That doesn't serve anyone's best interest. Pricing. There's some pricing concerns, and I'm not going to rattle off a whole bunch. I'm just giving you a couple of off the top of my head to get into this. But sometimes Amazon will say, hey, you're not allowed to charge more than $20 for this thing. And we're looking and it's like, well, that guy's charging 28. This guy's charging 40. Amazon itself is charging more than 20, but you're making me stay under 20. That doesn't make any sense. So those kind of things, they're just like irrationalities, system flaws, I would say. A handful of those, I would say, is the most frustrating things for me, is because it makes sense for everyone for those things to be fixed.
Yeah, and I think I share your same sentiment when it comes to that. I don't know if I see this as a world of, oh, this is where this is a laundry list of things that Amazon doesn't do well. But the question is like, how do we bridge that gap with Amazon and making sure that they're aware? Because sometimes I believe that they might not even be aware of the problem itself that sellers might be experiencing. And today we're talking a little bit about seller advocacy and in general, what we're doing to improve the lives of sellers and making sure that the seller issues are at the forefront. Once again, I think I like to see virtual hand raises here if you guys have experienced this. Today, I hear when I talk to sellers that there are constant policy changes, higher fees, unexpected hurdles, and as a result, right, you can have a fortitude of different things, whether it's lost inventory, stranded inventory, block listings, suppressed listings, unfair claims. And I think most sellers then reach out to seller support and provide those issues to seller support. And I'm sure many of you guys have gotten less than adequate responses to your issues. Let's put it that way. And so it's not like the seller support's issue like fault necessarily. They obviously are looking to solve the problems that are at hand, but they might not have the full information or have the escalation paths to send it to the right team to actually address this issue at hand. And so millions of seller voices go unheard. And so our mission really is to to help aggregate some of that information, utilize kind of the contacts we have at Amazon and make sure that they're at least aware. I can't promise that everything we bring up to Amazon necessarily will be solved. They have their own set of priorities that they find to be important. But what we wanted to do is at least be that voice of the customer and let them know that this is happening. And so we've met initially 1-2 people. Jim and I were sharing stories at, I think, an Amazon Accelerate about various people we've met at Amazon in the past. That turned into dozens of people and now hundreds of people at Amazon, everything from VPs, directors, engineers, global teams, local teams, seller enforcement, listings, you name it. We've met many, many different teams. And not only that, actually, recently we've been reached out to by Amazon's press team to fly out to Seattle about various announcements that they have. And so I think at this point, we just have so many different contacts within Amazon. And it's about finding the right contact for the right problem to try and get change. Well, not change, but get issues brought up to the forefront so that change could be had. And so we're synthesizing thousands of you guys' voices. For those that have been in any of our Facebook groups, you guys have probably seen me reach out with various surveys. We've done this 3 times where then I collate all the information, organize that, synthesize that, and send that over to Amazon. With the advent of AI, that's become infinitely easier than pre-AI, I will have to say. And just to give you guys a scope of what we've done thus far here in 2025, the various meetings we've had. In February, I was invited. I was the only API partner to be invited to speak at a fireside chat in front of over 100 Amazonians. And we had an hour to cover a wide range of topics, whether it was feedback on the API, but then also bring seller issues to the forefront. They were really interested in understanding, kind of from our perspective, working with tens of thousands of sellers, what the sellers were saying, what they were experiencing, and how they could improve. What I thought was going to be 1 to 2 hours of meetings thereafter turned into 6 hours of back-to-back-to-back meetings. And I got to meet so many different teams that day that were just fascinated about various insights and stories and thoughts that I had. And that was able to kind of parlay into a series of meetings that I met with them in March in Paris, where we got updates to some of those issues. And in late March, I was invited to a really no context video call. It just said, I think, voice of the customer from Amazon, from Yoda. I couldn't see who was on the invite list. I couldn't see anything. And I had not known or prepared for that meeting other than the fact that I knew Amazon wanted to talk to me about something. And when I joined that call in April, it turns out that seller enforcement was in that room. And the contacts that I had at Amazon was meeting seller enforcement for the first time as well. And I wish that I was a lot more prepared in that moment, but I was able to bring up 2 issues. One is counterfeit without a test buy and the ASIN and brand gating issues. And so I have some updates for you guys on that. In July, I had another chance to meet with them in Seattle where they had some pretty good gating updates. And in September, we've been invited to meet with Amazon's press team out in Seattle. So we will be flying out there and having some conversations with them. So a lot of our experience, just going back, we do have physical and virtual conversations with them. And once again, this isn't about necessarily telling them how bad they are or how good they are. It's really ultimately, how do we bring the issues to the forefront so that they can make the right decisions to provide a better experience for sellers, especially because their Seller Central team is definitely looking to improve their experience with sellers, despite some of the decisions they make every once in a while. And so I want to go into some of the 5 issues that we actually brought up to Amazon and some of the updates that they've been able to provide with that. So back in February, for anyone here that sells media or books, I don't know if you guys remember this, but about 10 to 15% of ASINs were kind of like hidden gated in Q1. But the way it transpired was that when you tried to create a listing, it would just disappear from your listings with your view inventory page. And so we provide this data on widespread seller support issues. And there was someone in our book flipper community group on Facebook that had mentioned, hey, this actually happened to us a year and a half ago. Here are all the ISBNs that this happened to. And I know for a fact that Amazon has fixed this before because this was an issue a year and a half ago. And so what I did was I reached out asked everyone to provide all their ISBNs that they were running into issues with, their seller IDs, so that I can give them concrete data. And as a result of all the information we were able to provide them, they had sent me an email on March 28th. Hey, Yoda, listen, thank you for all of that. We've been able to resolve this. And in order to make sure this doesn't happen again in the future, we will be implementing automated solutions by the year. And I think this was the first moment I realized, wow, Amazon's willing to make a change based off of something that is that widespread. And I think this is like a flagpole moment where I thought to myself, okay, maybe we should bring more issues to the forefront that they should be aware of, that they might not fully understand. And I think at the time, they didn't even 100% know that this was going on. And so it is something, once again, that there are unintended consequences from certain decisions that they have internally. And I think our role is to make sure that they're just aware. The second issue, you were mentioning this earlier, Jim, maximum prices. Today, sellers have to guess what max price suppresses buy box, or even worse, push your inventory into stranded state. And so what we want to do is at least, hey, this is an issue. Is there anything we could do about it? And what they've been able to say is like, listen, we can definitely share max price for buy box suppression and max price for stranded inventory. I remember that day because I think my jaws almost dropped. I'm like, you're willing to share this? Are you sure? Do you need to run through legal? Is this an actual thing? And so they are going to be rolling this out through the API. And later this year, we'll be integrating it to a few of our products, Smarter Pricer, Inventory Lab, and several others, actually.
That's incredible. To me, that the fact that they're willing to share, to me, and this is an unmanageable challenge because it changes constantly. There's ASINs in the catalog right now where the price was different last week at major retailers, and it'll be different next week because of tariffs or inflation or supply and demand or whatever. So the fact that there is even a maximum price that can be identified to me is almost laughable, but at least they're going to share it with us so we don't have to guess what they think the max price should be. And the next step of this, Yoda, I think is the next pushback I would have it. Hey, thanks for sharing that data. That's great. But where do we appeal and say, hold up, you can't even buy it for that I can't even source it for that price, right? So I love that they're listening though. If they're going to actually start identifying which ASINs have a price cap and what that price cap is, that's going to alleviate so many headaches. So I'm thrilled for that. But the free market guy in me wants to just say, hey, no price caps. Customer wants to pay it, let them pay it, right? That's my opinion. But this is a step in that 100%. Direction, and I'm thrilled.
I am in 100% agreement with you. I think this is a step in the right direction, and I think we need to crawl before we run. Yes. And this is one of those moves.
But it's coming. Did you happen to have did you mention a timeline on, has there been any mention of a timeline on that one?
Initially it was Q3, but with Amazon, we will obviously keep working with them on that, and we'll have broader announcements when this is ready in terms of
around the corner as we're recording this. So it's almost over, I should say. Yeah.
As soon as you start the quarter, I already think we're about to end the quarter. Time moves so fast.
That's how Amazon sellers think. We're already in Q4, baby.
Yeah, 100%. The third issue, for many here, they probably realized in January, Amazon changed their APIs. And as a crucial change to those APIs, instant FN SKUs were removed. It turns out that the old FBA APIs were not meant to create instant FN SKUs, and as a result, was creating downstream issues with regards to duplicating FN SKUs or whatnot, creating inbound receive problems. And so what they did was removed it. Now, I've brought this up actually multiple times, and since then have had follow-up calls with them expressing this issue specifically. It seems like there are underlying data issues that make this a little bit more difficult. It is something that they are actively working on, and when I last met them in July, it seemed like they continue to make slow progress towards it. But I do believe that Amazon's genuinely motivated to bring it back after they figure out the large technical overhaul that they would need to address. And so that is something that is in the pipeline that we continue to fight for. I think many businesses have had to adjust, but I think this also still impacts the used books category the most, just because of the operating flow of how the used booksellers work, as well as the prep centers. that service those used books. And then the fun stuff, addressing counterfeit without test buy.
Yes. Yes. Let it die.
So yeah, so before we even go into this, I'm not 100% sure if Amazon has a clear definition and delineation between the word counterfeit and gray market. And those two are very, very different concepts.
Yes.
Right. I don't think most sellers are going to their lab or their garage and trying to print out a L'Oreal branded tag to sticker onto a plastic tube that they create with their own items and their own liquids that they put into that tube and ship it over to Amazon.
Yes.
That's a lot of work. That's also fraud, but that's a lot of work. And so I think
illegal. Right.
That is also illegal.
I've known thousands and thousands of sellers, and I've known none of them that said, "I've like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to send completely illegal inventory on purpose and get away with it as long as I can." Like, I've never met that person, right?
I'm
but
sure
the
some
rules are set up to prevent, and I know they're out there.
Yeah. But it's unlikely, right? For resellers. I mean, for most people, it's just a lot of work and they don't have the capital to do that. But having invoices, yes, sure, prove some form of authenticity. I do think that receipts do as well. If you get a receipt from Walmart, do we truly believe that this is counterfeit or is this gray market? And so that's something that I've been pushing before we even go down the counterfeit without a test buy. I've been pushing this concept between counterfeit versus gray market to Amazon and continuing to educate them on the discrepancies and how do we go about tackling. I do think counterfeit is potentially a problem on the platform, given how large the Amazon platform is. And I would hate to be the person trying to work on this because this is a no-win situation, right? How do you tackle counterfeit? It's so hard on a platform so big.
Mm-hmm. I can share let me share briefly how we train our students real quick, because we get a lot of resellers. We train them on this. You've got to be able to prove that it's not counterfeit. How do you do that? You show that it's from an authorized source. Well, how do you know it's authorized? It's a simple 3-word phrase I ask all of our students to memorize. Ask the brand. It's that simple. If the brand says, well, of course, Walmart is an authorized distributor of our product. You go to any Walmart retail store and you're going to buy a legitimate product. If the brand, you don't have to ask the brand's permission to sell their stuff. I'm just talking about saying, hey, if I buy your stuff from Walmart, is it legit? Every brand in the world will say, you walked into an Amazon, or excuse me, a Walmart store and bought something off the shelf. Yes, that's authorized product. Your receipt is all you need. And to date, with thousands of students, thousands and thousands, I've never seen an exception to that rule. If you're sourcing from an authorized retailer with a receipt, you're good to go 100% of the time. That's our experience in our community. Now, sometimes you get a rep who doesn't understand and it gets escalated and that rep understands, but 100% of the time, but you have to be able to prove that it's authorized inventory. That's where some people get confused. It's like, well, this is a perfect product I bought from a yard sale in the shrink wrap. Surely it's good to go. No, because you don't have that chain of custody showing that it came from authorized. So Amazon has to assume that it's from an unauthorized source. That's how we train. And 99.99999% of the time, that's exactly how the rules are interpreted. And we've got thousands of resellers operating within those rules, meaning all legitimate retailers are good to go, assuming they're authorized to sell the brands that they sell on their store shelves or on their website. Ask the brand when you're in doubt. I just want to throw a quick lesson in there because there's a lot of confusion in the industry, and I'm hoping a lot of people see this. There's a lot of good places to source inventory, and a retail receipt will get you through if the store is authorized to sell the brands they sell. Ask the brand. That's how you can know. Hopefully,
what's funny about that? That's 100% very helpful for someone here. You know what's funny about that is I think the brand owner that has brand registry is the only one that can file a counterfeit without test buy. So it is funny that comes full circle, that you would reach out to the brand themselves to confirm that Walmart is an authorized retailer for their brand.
Well, there's a big difference between asking confirmation that you're about to purchase from an authorized source and asking that brand permission to sell their stuff.
100%.
There's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of brands right now that would say, we don't want you to sell our stuff on Amazon, but their stuff is sold on Amazon all day, every day, legally and within policy, and Amazon has your back. Amazon loves the first sale doctrine, but I call them the grumpy brands that have hired lawyers that say, no, we don't like the way that one word is phrased on that ASIN. So therefore we want to shut down Amazon, and they beat Amazon in submission, and all the sellers have to get off that ASIN, and the ASIN gets shut down. I call those grumpy brands, and they're out there, and you stop selling that stuff, right? We've got, just to be clear, Yoda, and you know this, but for those listening, we've got resellers in our community with catalogs of 100,000 ASINs that they are selling against. And they see these issues pop up all day, every day, and they swat them down like little flies, and they go on with their life. So that's how the game is played at that level, is buy from authorized sources. If it's a grumpy brand, you drop that ASIN, you move on. There's hundreds of thousands of brands out there that you can sell against. So that's how we approach it in our community.
That is, I think, a huge tip. So I appreciate you selling that with the group, because I don't know if I fully understood first time you told me this last time, but that totally makes sense. And reaching out to the brand just to double check that the retailer that you bought it from is an authorized retailer is a huge tip.
Because that's what the brand, that's what Amazon's going to do. If a brand says, hey, you're selling counterfeit, I think that's the seller over here selling counterfeit, Amazon's going to ask for your invoice or receipt. They're going to show that invoice or receipt to the brand and say, is this an authorized source? And if the brand says, oh, yeah, that's an authorized source, they're in our chain, that's a distributor or a retailer or a website or a source, wholesaler, they're allowed to sell our stuff. Well, okay, that's where the seller got it from, so we're going to authorize that transaction as legitimate then, right? So Amazon's going to bat for you as a seller if you have your paperwork. If you don't, they're going to have to assume that you got it on Temu and it just looks really good, and they're going to have to take your inventory and freeze your funds and all that, because you can't prove that it's good inventory. But it's a simple game. And this is based too on a good buddy of mine, Jeff Schick. I know you know him. He's done thousands of these cases for people. And again, with no exception. If you ask the brand and they say, yep, that's an authorized source, you're going to be good to go. Amazon has your back at that point. Help Amazon help you by sourcing from authorized sources that the brand says is allowed to sell their product. It really is that simple, but it gets overcomplicated. When people buy, the liquidation pallets, the shelf pulls, the yard sale stuff, the gift your aunt gave you 2 Christmases ago, like, don't sell that stuff on Amazon. Just don't. You don't have a receipt or an invoice showing you sourced it from an authorized source that was authorized by the brand. Ask the brand. So, that's all you got to remember.
What do you recommend to sellers that sell, let's say, used books?
Used books is the only exception. I love it. That's where really sharp minds go right there when I make that statement. Don't sell used stuff without a receipt. Books is the only exception I've ever seen. Used books.
Yeah.
And don't ever sell new books unless you are sourcing them straight from the publisher in bulk. I wouldn't sell new books on Amazon ever. It's too risky from my vantage point. Used books, decent niche to get into. I don't recommend it necessarily. I think it's a lot of work. FBA storage fees kill you, means you got to store them yourself. It's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
But as a business model, you are perfectly legit to sell used books on Amazon without a receipt from an authorized source. Used books are the only exception to that rule that I'm aware of. And that's based on just the experience of seeing thousands of sellers selling product.
Yeah, I mean, actually, earlier this year, even used books were running into, and used media were running into this counterfeit without a test buy issue. We had dozens of people reach out to us and say, hey, this is becoming a huge, huge, huge issue. Mm-hmm. And as we all know, the number one bookseller, Glenn the bookseller, I mean, I'm sure everyone here has seen Glenn the bookseller, is like the most infamous guy, had to teach Amazon on what trade-ins are. There are no invoices in the world of trade-ins, right? And so I think Amazon themselves had to get ramped up and understand how business models work for them to be able to adjust for certain categories like used books.
So my experience pool is more limited, and because we try to talk people out of that model more than we talk them into it. Unless they're brand new, like, sell a few used books to get the wheels turning. Amazon will know, like, and trust you after a few transactions. Yeah. But as a business model to dive nose deep into, no. So that's my experience circle. So I love that you're even there. It's just another good reason for me to talk people out of used books, because you're not going to have, well, Amazon figures it out. You're not going to have a good receipt or invoice for a pile of used books that you bought at a yard sale, right? You can't prove that.
The one thing that I will say in favor of used books, aside from the fact that that's Amazon's obvious ethos, having started as a book business, is that I feel like used books might be the only category of arbitrage selling that has made it to over 100 million in sales for
Oh,
one
and just so
seller.
many listings, though. They've got an unfair
I
advantage. Yeah,
know.
it's a massive category. Yeah,
It is a massive category. And so it's pretty cool to see. I obviously would love to see the first arbitrage seller that hits 100 million in sales outside of media, which I'm sure it'll just take a little bit of time before someone in this room may hit that
it's
number.
coming. It's coming.
It's coming. So just to come back to counterfeit without a test buy, obviously a lot of legitimate resellers get hit with these unfair counterfeit claims. And so we reached out to our Facebook groups and had a survey that we sent out, and we collated that information into a 6-page document that we sent to Amazon. And this was coming out of a conversation with the seller enforcement team that had requested for additional information. And so what we did was collate this and sent this over. I believe they're working on this, although timelines seem to be a little bit less determined than some of the other initiatives that we've had in the pipeline working with Amazon. I think I can understand why they might be a little bit more guarded with this information than some of the other initiatives that we've had. And lastly, the fifth item that we've worked with Amazon is brand and ACE ungating, which is what you mentioned to be like the first and largest issue. So everyone here, hopefully, or I don't hope that you guys have run into it, but you guys probably understand how unpredictable this can be for legitimate sellers. I've had the opportunity to talk to many sellers, and some of them have unfortunately told me about 60 to 80% revenue declines, staff reductions, shift to other platforms. And in more kind of like grim stories, it's people who've been saving up for their kids' college or for their retirement. And so I think this is definitely something that pulls on my heartstrings and making sure that I want to figure out a way to navigate Amazon and really build a more sturdy policy such that it's less unpredictable. I think everyone here in this room probably agrees that gating itself is an okay practice to have. I think it's the unpredictability of, okay, today I sent in a 100-unit invoice and I got ungated. By tomorrow, I've been regated for another 500 units. And I think that type of unpredictability makes it really, really difficult for people to operate in. And so what I did as a result of that the same call, I prepared a similar survey to our various Facebook groups, collated a 14-page document across 100, I want to say 80 or so sellers to highlight the unintended challenges, especially for various categories like used media and arbitrage, where sometimes gathering invoices is not as possible. You might have store receipts, whatever it is. Another business model that I was shocked to understand is that Amazon is actually very okay with dropship, a model that I think in general in the public sphere is somewhat looked down upon. But they are okay so long as you can prove authenticity and have agreements with the source of record. They're also okay with dropship. And I knew to some degree they were okay with dropship because some of their largest categories are all dropship. Good example of this is furniture. Amazon ships themselves on the vendor side. And so it is kind of a practice that's being used. And one of the things that's been interesting is, and Stephen knows this because Stephen and I have been working pretty closely on this, is it seems like there is an underlying potential solution for the regate scenario. And so Stephen right now and I are just making sure and triple checking if what Amazon is telling us would limit that is true before we tell the public. I want to make sure that I can stand on the words that I say to the public for something that big. And so we are right now testing it with his seller account on a couple different brands, Old Spice and a few others that we know have drawn sellers into a ungate, regate situation. And so we are testing that right now across the board so that potentially we might have some good updates. We've asked them for empirical data and information that what they're saying is true. They just asked us to test it. So we are going through that. And in the July meeting that I had with them as well, they had mentioned that they're making ungating easier for sellers. And I thought that was the first time I spoke to them and thought to myself, wow, this is potentially going to be very positive. And not only that, we've been able to utilize some of the Amazon data that they're providing. And we are going to be integrating some of that into quick picks, into tactical arbitrage too. in a couple weeks where you'll be able to just filter to easy to ungate brands and ASINs. And once we have this service available, we're going to obviously roll this out to every Seller 365 application. Our product and engineering team have done a phenomenal job in being able to collate this and be able to provide this for the broader public. And so it comes all in the package of addressing brand and ASIN gating. And we're doing everything we can to obviously fight for, especially the sellers that share those really deep stories about not having to lay people off or not being able to save for their kids' college. And so this is kind of the why we do it. And we're super excited about the various updates we could provide to you guys today. Jim, what do you think about that?
Yeah, gating. Let's talk about gating for just a second. Here's how we teach it currently. In the current environment that we exist in is we call it inch deep, mile wide. Amazon has, and not everyone does it this way, but inch deep, mile wide means rather than me getting too excited or going too deep on any one brand or ASIN category, I've got to diversify. And many of our sellers will never buy more than 10, 20 units of anything ever because they know they could wake up tomorrow and be gated, or could wake up tomorrow and counterfeit without a test buy. Here comes all your inventory. It's in dispute. Like, all right, how about we just diversify across the board and have a whole bunch of ASINs and then sell the good ones at any given time? And that has become a viable, powerful strategy. I know it's not Amazon's preferred way to get a bunch of random stuff in boxes all day. How about pallets instead, right? But you're making it so hard for us as resellers to do that because of unpredictability of things like gating. So the way we teach on the gating is earn Amazon's trust. Gating will happen organically over time. Don't go buy 300 or 100 or even 50 or even 10 units. Rarely will you even ever buy 10 units to get ungated. Don't worry about that. Just get ungated organically. The more you sell, the more they trust you, the more these gates fall open. That's okay. If that's how Amazon wants to play, that kind of makes sense to me. We can teach that. That's a consistent playground to play on. But what gets frustrating when you start playing in that environment, and Debbie pointed this out in the post that she just made, is, okay, you say I'm ungated. Cool. I'm going to go buy 20 units of that item and I'm going to ship them in. And halfway there, oh, I'm gated again. Now that's frustrating. That is where I'm saying Amazon loses, the reseller loses, the customers. It makes no sense whatsoever to say you're ungated. And then 5 days later, oop, kidding. That doesn't make sense. There needs to be some, I'm not sure what the system flaw is there. I'm sure it's not an intentional thing. Surely it can't be an intentional thing. So that to me is the biggest frustration because I can play within the rules as they've been drawn up otherwise, which is, hey, gates come, gates go, brands come, brands go. Okay, Nike's here, Nike's gone. All right, that means I'm not going to go all in on Nike's. That's cool. I can handle that. And sorry for the people who did. I get it loud and clear. You don't want me going all in on one brand. But to pull the rug out less than a week after you've ungated me, come on, that's ridiculous. That's kind of where I'm at on these issues. That's how we train these issues, in a nutshell. I could go deeper in any direction, of course, because we see this stuff at scale in our community. But yeah, back to you, man. What thoughts do you have as I'm laying that down?
I am in total agreement with you. And what's awesome to hear is that when we spoke to various people at Amazon about it, I don't think that's the intended concept, the intended behavior is to ungate then regate within the same week. And so it's something that they have given us feedback on kind of potential solutions to avoid that. And so this is kind of what I was talking about earlier with what we're working on with Steven to just, double check, triple check that this is the right way to not run into that issue. And if that is the case, we'll obviously have a broader announcement for the community in a positive way.
Yeah, I think we need to turn this into a series of let's do this quarterly or so. Like, hey, what are you hearing, man? What can you tell us?
I'd love to do any webinar with you, Jim. It's always been a good conversation. And honestly, these types of conversations also help us learn what we should be talking about. And so for everyone here, aside from the wins that we've been able to share today, some of the things that we're working on is alternative authenticity verification methods, especially for categories of selling that potentially does not have wide-scale invoices. Brand gating refinement, maybe 100 to 500 unit gatings is a rough pill to swallow, especially if you get regated the same week. Instant FN SKUs. And I think the fourth bullet point that I didn't include here that I should have is just continued education around counterfeit versus gray market. And I think more and more, my push has been that And so I think as they like deeply understand the differences there and try and tackle sellers that do sell counterfeit items, which once again, it's a thankless job. It's a tough job for anyone to be working on. But we want to make sure that there are legitimate sellers that are able to operate within the Amazon platform as well. I
I'm typing
guess
away.
before I jump in, like, is there anything I'm missing here, Jim, based off of what you're hearing from the community in terms of what we should be talking to Amazon about, or potentially bringing it to the forefront that they might not be aware of?
I think we read over the comments, and I think we're going to save this chat and read through there. There's been some great things that have been brought up. My two big ones we've hit pretty hard. I just want to, the way I want to answer your question is, I'm thrilled that Amazon is seeking out. When I say Amazon, I mean, we're talking tens of thousands of people, right? But the right people in the right positions are listening to the right people out here in reseller land. I had a conversation with a senior VP, and it's been a few years back. And he said, "Thank you. You resellers, you're filling our shelves in a way that we never could. We couldn't hire enough people. We could never hire enough people to keep the shelves on our hundreds of warehouses full of the stuff that people need and want. You guys are so much better at it than we'll ever be. Thank you." Those are his exact words to me at a lunch he invited me to. Okay. They appreciate us, but this is a big machine with a lot of moving parts. All we're asking for is, hey, Amazon, let the right people hear us on these concerns and do what you can. There's a lot of conflicting systems within the Amazon machine. And sometimes the wheels grind in the wrong direction and the resellers get the bad end of the stick, bad end of the deal. But they're paying attention, they're listening, they're fixing. There's a lot of things they have fixed. There's a lot of errors they have corrected over the years. So I think that what I want to say is keep focused on, just keep in your mind, Amazon's doing the best they can with what they've got, serving customers, millions of resellers. Stay within the policies. These issues are being worked on, and it's way better than it used to be from my perspective. I think the policy enforcement and the policies, the way they're written, those two have begun to overlap in a more clear fashion than they ever have. They're very consistent now. If someone got suspended, there was probably a really good reason for it, an avoidable reason the vast majority of the time. And we see thousands of these cases, right? There'll always be those head scratchers like, what'd that person do? Well, they end up getting reinstated eventually, typically, right? So Amazon really is doing a great job from my perspective. And again, this is with a community of thousands of resellers that we serve, but it is frustrating. So what specific issues? Man, I don't have anything else to throw on the pile today. I just love that they're listening, and I love that you're advocating aggressively for resellers, Yoda. Thank you.
Well, I'm doing my best. It's going to take people like us to hopefully get some of these voices heard, especially given the reach we have within both of our communities.
Hey, thanks for joining us for today's episode. I had to go ahead and cut it off about there. We spent some time chatting around, taking some questions and that sort of thing, but I think you got the meat of the time that we spent together. If you enjoyed this episode, if you want more of these kind of conversations with other influencers and leaders in the Amazon selling space, let us know. Leave us a review. Jump into our free Facebook group. There's a link at silentjimdotcom to do that. 82,000 of us hanging out all day, every day, talking about Amazon e-commerce strategy, helping each other out. Jump in there, talk about any podcast episode, and leave us some feedback. We'd love to hear from you. If you want more or less of anything that we tend to talk about around here, hey, this is your show. I'm not in charge. Our team's not in charge. You are in charge. But the only way we know what you want is if you tell us. So hop into our Facebook group, send us a message. You can hop on silentjim.com as well and look for the coaching link. That'll take you to a page where you can have a conversation with our team for free, a half-hour consultation where we're going to help you map out where you are now, where you want to be, what the best course of action is to get there as soon as possible for the least amount of expense. We'd love to help you map out the best path forward for your business. Reach out to us. We've been doing this a long time. Matter of fact, you may not realize we're the longest running e-commerce coaching organization in the world. We've been doing Amazon coaching longer than anyone by far. That's why we have so many success stories. The hundreds of interviews you've heard on our show, those are our students. And we'd love to make you the next success story. But for no obligation, no pressure, let's have a conversation. Ask us your questions. There's no bad questions. We've got consultants on our team who help with our clients some of the brands that we're building, as well as helping out with those who want to build a roadmap at no cost and go from where you are now, even if it's a completely clueless newbie who's never sold anything online. We would love to have a conversation with you from where you are now to where you want to be and helping you map out the best course of action going forward. It's free. Take advantage of it. silentjim.com. The direct link is silentjim.com/book a call if you want to hop on our schedule, or text us right now. Someone will get back to you or give us a call. We've got someone working. We have help around the world. Our team's about 100 people at this point. Coaches, content creators, administrators in our Facebook group, all the other roles around here. Very few of us are full-time, but between the part-time efforts of a huge team, we've got the best Amazon seller training support in the industry by far. And we keep winning all the rewards that show that that's the case. But hey, come experience it for yourself. Test out our free resources. Listen to some more podcast episodes. Hang out in our community and decide for yourself what you think of what we got going on around here. It's a success-filled, abundant-minded arena that you're stepping into, and we're so glad that you're joining us. Well, I think I'll wrap it up here. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Again, send us your feedback. We'd love to hear from you. Leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify if you use those services. We'd love to. That helps us not only boost our rankings in the podcast arena, but it helps us know what you're thinking. We'd love to see that feedback coming through. God bless you, business building warrior. We'll have another great episode for you very soon.